Hey, everybody. Happy New Year. Ed Carbajal here for MMAnews.com. Please follow me on Twitter at Carbazal. And if you're watching this where it lives on the MMAnews.com YouTube channel, please make sure you like and subscribe. Click the bell notification for our future content that includes stuff like this, the Sunday submission, first one of the year, and interviews. I think we have the latest are Shane Burgos and Nick Lentz, courtesy of James Lynch, MMA's favorite Canadian. So that is that. First one of the year. I'm sorry again. I'm doing this late. It's 2:00 in the afternoon East Coast time. Dragging ass into the new year. I'm sure a lot of us are. Not a lot to talk about. I mean, there's most sports as far as combat sports, regional, mixed martial arts, UFC, Bellator, Extreme Fighting Championships. Well, PFL hasn't been on all year, so they're supposed to be coming back. I think they said April, maybe. That's a little early than usual for them, but they have some lost time to make up for. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you had a happy New Year's Eve. I personally, we did have some action, and as the Earth made its rotation around the sun, Japan always blesses us with a huge event. So they brought up all their all their great local talent in Rizin Fighting Federation. Rizin 26. The main event was Kyoji Horiguchi versus Kana Asukara, and that was Horiguchi's return after having to relinquish both his Rizin and Bellator titles because he had a I think he tore his ACL, and that was a knee injury. And weird how the pandemic happened and kind of gave him time to work all that out. And he came back and avenged his loss to Asukara because when they fought, I mean, he was looking back. I mean, there's a lot of folks that were talking about how busy he was. I mean, that's the task of being or pursuing a double championship. I'm wondering if he's going to do it again. You know, obviously, both Rizin and Bellator don't mind working together. And it's cool, something fans would like to see in that sport, in combat sports. You know, we have boxing, like we saw Ryan Garcia pick up his win yesterday. And we're going to get into that, too, in a bit. I just wanted to talk about the events we've had in the order in which they happened. And the story behind Horiguchi. I mean, you know, moving forward into a new year as we get into it now with the oh great, of course my laptop wants to dick around, and that's definitely on the menu for me. New laptop in 2021, so I can create better content for you guys. But anyway, as I wait for that to fix itself. So moving forward into the new year, one of the things we have to wonder is what cards are the promotions and promoters going to play, being that we're still, you know, in COVID. Obviously, the bubbles are still going to be a thing. No fans or little fans. I think I forget. I think it was like 10,000 fans they allowed in the Rizin event for New Year's Eve. But I'm wondering if moving forward with everything going on, if cross promotion, that's the first time we've really seen it. And I feel like as with vaccines being available and things coming out, I hope anyway. What do I know? I'm nobody. I'm no expert. But I guess one would hope that the combat sports space, given everyone saw the Dana White video where he brags the numbers, and you know, obviously UFC's moved forward and they held all those events for, I forget how many weeks it was, up until the end of the year, and they're not due back. I think January 16th is the first card back for them, so that's soon. So now everybody's going to try to, as hopefully we're getting back to some sort of normalcy. Everyone's going to have to try to do something different. You've heard me talk about like Extreme Fighting Championships. They're February 15th, I believe, is their next event on NBC Sports, and they're doing everything different than what everyone else is doing. They're not just putting on a card full of fights. I mean, technically it is, but each fight has its own little path to some sort of success depending on those competitors. They have their Young Guns, which is kind of their version of the Contender Series, where they're featuring these guys that could either be stars or you might never see them again. And they have the lightweight and welterweight tournament, and then they do veterans featured fights at the top of the card. So that's new. That's a different format with their Pro Fight League returning. Obviously they have their seasonal format, which is a tournament like, and then it goes to the end of the year. They didn't do that, and they got some big signees, as we know. Anthony Pettis is there, Fabricio Werdum is there for the heavyweight tournament. So we get something fresh when they kick off. Hopefully nothing stops them from kicking off. I mean, personally, I don't know if I've said this here before. I know I've said it on my own podcast before. Personally, I think they could have gone, with a bubble, especially. I mean, you looked like their biggest, their most popular talent in Kayla Harrison. She trains in Florida, if I'm not mistaken, and AEW held events there. I mean, even Dana White, when he first came back, was like, if you want to do something, come to Florida and do it. So I feel like they could have gone, but I mean, again, the money that not everyone has the same funding as the UFC does, being owned by Endeavor and broadcasting with ESPN, which is Disney. We all know Disney's like a mega entity in the entertainment world. So anyway, I'm going around and around with all the promotions to say about Horiguchi. I don't know if he's going to take what happened with the surgery. I mean, ESPN wrote an article about him where he talked about how he broke his shin when he was younger. So maybe this is nothing to him, and he does want to go back and try to reclaim both the Bellator, the Bellator title, because he reclaimed the Rizin title on New Year's Eve. There was another fight on that card that I was really interested in. Shinobu Ota. Am I getting his name right? I'm sorry if I'm not. Is this? Let me see if this thing corrected itself yet, so I could look up. Yeah, because I want to bring it up and make sure I don't get anyone's name wrong rather. Oh, hold on. I tweeted the graphic of the card. Let me look at my own Twitter profile because I had that. I was excited, and I think it aired midnight. So you had to be up all night for, to get down with Rizin if you were going to get down on Rizin. Here we go. I found the bot order of Rizin 26. Let's see. Shinobu Ota. I said his name right. Versus Hideo Tokoro. I mean, Shinobu Ota is like a fantastic wrestler that made his MMA debut. And the thing about that particular match, I was excited for, because if you're a newer MMA fan, you probably never watched Pride Fighting Championships. So Japan, the way Japan does MMA is always a treat, right? So it's almost the same reason folks watched Mayweather McGregor and the whole Jake Paul versus whomever, or the Paul versus some pro fighter or whatever might happen this year. It's that what if factor. You want to see what happens, but when you see someone coming out of it's like watching a really good. Back in the day, they did it with and Pride did it with Wanderlei Silva when Cro Cop first fought under the Pride banner. Because Cro Cop was knocking people out left and right. He was very well known in kickboxing, and then they brought him in to be like, okay, let's see. It looks like Mikey, he likes it. Cro Cop liked MMA, and we know what happened with his career from there. And but he's one of the folks that you want to see them cross over and adapt to the rules of MMA. A lot of female boxers are doing it these days. I mean, you look at the news with Clarissa Shields, another PFL signee. She's doing it, and you look at Heather Hardy, Anna Hulaton, Amanda Serrano. I mean, Holly Holm. the list goes on. I don't know why there's not more men doing it. I guess the egos maybe are what make women more daring to try different things and stay busy outside of the financial stuff. Because if the names I just mentioned, Hardy, Clarissa Shields, have been public about how boxing is not paying the ladies what they're worth when it comes to putting on a show. Anyway, back to Horiguchi and Rizin. Oh, and I was talking about Ota and Hideo Takoro. So that fight really piqued my interest because I know it was a really great wrestler making his MMA debut. But I mean the record. I mean they really put him against a very seasoned mixed martial artist in Hideo Takoro. I believe it's Bellator 134. You want to see a good example of like Japanese fighters and Japanese MMA? Watch. I think it's Bellator 134. LC Davis versus Hideo Takoro. I'm not ruining anything by telling you that Davis wins the fight, but it's almost it's almost like it was all suicide technique against one another. It's like all the moves that everyone went for was just balls to the wall or sacrifice techniques. I should say not suicide, sacrifice techniques. And just that type of action, I remember that was 2015, so it's already 6 years ago. And action like that gets you on your feet. But needless to say, Takoro won that fight. And again, Horiguchi got his title. So I'm wondering if Horiguchi is gonna pursue the two titles again. If I think if logistically with COVID protocols and stuff like that, if there's a way that Sakakibara and Coker could work out getting that train going again with Horiguchi, because there's guys I saw Juan Archuleta calling out Kyoji Horiguchi again, because when you relinquish a title, kind of like the whole situation with John Jones and him talking all the smack on Twitter, when you relinquish a title, there's not you didn't lose it. You know what I mean? It's one of the things I like to say about guys like Justin Gaethje and Marlon Moraes. When they left what is now the PFL, before that they were World Series of Fighting, WSOF. They were the champions in their respective weight classes there. So to see them, they kind of, when everything was happening, they just went to the UFC. No one ever beat them for their titles. So in that sense, they were undefeated until they got to the UFC and they picked up their losses, which says a lot about the talent base, I know, in the UFC. But it also says, the fact that they're still able to compete and stay on top while they're there says a lot. I know Moraes is coming off a loss. I think I talked about that a couple of Sundays ago with the changing camp and stuff like that. So we got that out of the way for from Japan. They treated us to a nice MMA event while we're sitting around waiting for cards to get going again. And then the boxing came back this weekend. It was the first big boxing card on DAZN over the weekend. Young Ryan Garcia, 22 years old, man. He gave us now 21-0, defeated Luke Campbell with a 7th round TKO. But one thing about that card, it was early, which we're all for that out here on the East Coast, early enough for us to get into and not. What else are you doing, right? With all the lockdown stuff going on, it's not like you can do much anyway. So I'm sure a lot of folks spent their New Year's binge watching something or drinking something, and so in that sense, if you were looking for something to watch, Garcia versus Campbell was your fight of the weekend. So one thing about that was, I know in round 2, Campbell clipped Garcia on the chin and he fell. Who's to say if it was footwork or whatever, or legitimate knockdown, what have you? To me, this is my opinion. I know boxing fans get very defensive and stuff like that when you state an opinion on something boxing related, especially if you're not heavily. And I worked at Front Proof Media for a couple of years, which is a big boxing site. So I'm not talking out of my ass when I say, to me, Garcia didn't look like it bothered. it bothered him to the point that it fueled him to turn it up and give out what we eventually wound up seeing. So that always makes for, especially in boxing, it makes for great drama as far as the entertainment value of a boxing match. I mean, I hope that this is a trend that we see with events moving forward in boxing. That was on DAZN, so I know picking your poison when it comes to streaming combat sports content, that's going to be a thing in the coming year, especially with ESPN Plus. I don't know if you guys saw. I know it's up on MMAnews.com. The price of the pay-per-views are going to be going up, so that might. It's weird to. You almost think about. Do you remember in Best of the Best Part 2 when they had underground fights? And it was like rich people throwing money and gambling on fights. It's almost like you have to be one of those rich people to follow combat sports these days, because I mean, if you really want to catch it legally, obviously to stream it legally and stuff like that, you need a DAZN subscription, you need an ESPN Plus subscription. There's Fight TV and UFC Fight Pass and stuff like that, which I love Fight Pass. I think Fight Pass for me during this whole pandemic situation, I think I said this last week, was like the hero of for combat sports. But anyway, back to Garcia and Campbell. So that was on DAZN, and so round 7. If you watch it, the highlights are out on Twitter. Sorry, got a little weird menu issue. Thought somebody dropped a comment, but anyway, the body shot that ended it in round 7 against Luke Campbell. Listen, all I can tell you is that if you've never taken a shot to the liver, the reaction, I mean, folks that have probably felt that when it happened. And there's this video, actually. I mean, this is a nice intertwining of the two sports. There's a video out there of Ngannou holding a pad and with Ryan Garcia firing away at his body, just to give you listen to the sound of the impact of that, to give you an idea of what a trained pugilist, the power they generate for shots like that. My God, Luke Campbell, he was taking a lot of damage going towards that. And the thing about boxing that makes it such a sweet science is you have to find a way to make your opponent try to. It's almost, you have to scare them into thinking you're doing one thing. This is all for all combat sports, all martial arts, comparative to chess, right? You make them think you're doing one thing so you can get the opening to do something else, and that's pretty much what the knockdown of round 2 fired up Garcia to do leading up to round 7. I mean, you see him coming at him, laying on the onslaught, and he has Campbell's hands up high, and he was facing this way, and Garcia was kind of almost matching him, only just to wind up that left hand and pop right into the body, and it made Campbell walk backwards and just take a knee, and you could tell. I mean, again, if the only way you know what he felt is if you've had a liver shot taken yourself, and in all honesty, I mean, my days of back when I was doing karate and long pants kickboxing, shout out to Benjamin Abrigo for giving me the long pants kickboxing explanation, so I don't have to explain the difference between Muay Thai and that karate kickboxing that I did from the 80s, back in the day, 90s, my style of kickboxing. But I've taken my share of those from that time in my career as a student of the martial arts, and I can tell you that the best way to describe the pain of a liver shot, when I tell people about it, is like, imagine if you had to take a really bad dump and it was stuck right here on you can even feel it a little bit. Take your 4 fingers and jab yourself right under your rib cage. It's not going to feel good. You're going to be like, oh my God. It might make you even feel like you have to take a dump. So imagine you had to take a really bad dump, but you can't take it, and the hurt of it wanting to come out is just there. Again, 4 fingers, just right on your right side. 4 fingers, just jab yourself, and you'll be like, wow. So imagine that times 1,000. rattling your guts on the inside. Oh, I just made myself a little nauseous poking myself there. Um, and you'll have somewhat of an idea of what Campbell felt. There is no, the difference between body shot KOs and head knockout. It's the punch that you don't see, the punch that the person getting knocked out. It's the one they don't see coming that they get dropped, or they start getting, there's something that there's a shut off effect to it, and they get knocked out, and they wake up later and they're like, what happened? But with a body shot, you know exactly what happened. And there's a period, depending on how hard it is, like the one Campbell got, where you're just going to sit there and have to wait for it to be over. It almost freezes you up to the point you can't move. Again, if you would just watch that highlight, it's something that I mean, at 22 years old, man, that kid's got a long path ahead of him. It's a name to watch in boxing. I mean, I think you might as well throw him up there with the Triple G's and Canelos and stuff like that to watch. I know there's folks that are saying, okay, he still has to test top, but that's the whole point of the sport, right? A kid that young, I really did give myself gas, poking myself in the liver. Made myself a little nauseous. But if it is a sign of things to come, that's what you want in combat sports. You want to see these guys test themselves. If they're really that good, then you want to see them test themselves against the guys that you think are better. And I think we'll get that from Garcia. So shout out to the young hustler making his way in the sport. If you didn't watch it, the highlights are all over social media, especially that body shot. His knockdown is there too, so you can make your own judgment of that. Personally, I didn't think he was as hurt as folks made it out to be. When it happened, like there's folks like, right away, as soon as it happened, folks wanted to doubt him and downplay the kid, and then he goes around and does that. So, hey, man, the fight's not over till it's over, right? But so what do we expect now? I mean, I made my predictions. Shout out to Luke Lopez, the only one that dropped some comments last weekend on the podcast. But I'm just wondering what you guys think are I made my own predictions for 2021 in the combat sports world. I'm wondering what you guys think. Are we going to see like say, okay, we have the Paul. Apparently, I got the Paul wrong when I don't know, with the Mayweather bout. I mean, do you think that ends if Mayweather does it like he did Tenshin Nasukawa? Do you think that ends this YouTuber versus pro fighter thing, or are we going to see, just to get the eyeballs and money flowing, just to kind of get back into the swing of things while we're still in this COVID bubble situation that sports has to be under? Do you think we're going to see more of that, or does Mayweather silence it all? Do you think Horiguchi tries to get back the Bellator title? One thing, that came out, I think it was last week after I recorded, because I recorded last Sunday. One thing that came out was that how the UFC is going to be putting on a card in ABC. I don't know if I addressed that. I don't remember if I addressed that last weekend, but the thing that I did a podcast with the folks over at SureDog, and we talked about the UFC doing a card in ABC. And one of the things that I think is since the UFC wanted to be the first sport back when coming out of COVID, I think they're trying to beat Bellator to network TV, because Bellator, they're owned by Viacom, which is a CBS, Viacom CBS. They could very well they could go on network TV, and they're on CBS Sports. They could very well put them on CBS whenever they feel like it. And I feel like that move with ABC by the UFC, going on ABC, is just the UFC wanting to make sure that they're the ones that do it first. And it's been done before with Coker, the Elite XC Strike Force, when Kimbo Slice, Josh Thompson, that was a CBS card, if I'm not mistaken. A lot of folks watched that. So, and the numbers, if you look back then, the ratings that they got were huge. So you put the right names on the right cards. Everybody's got names now too, with Yoel Romero, Anthony Rumble Johnson, Ryan Bader. I mean, Bellator has a good mix of the names that they signed and their up and coming fighters like the AJ McKees, the Darian Caldwells, their tournament guys, Patricky Pitbull. There's everybody's got enough ingredients to really make it a competitive year for 2021 in the combat sports and MMA. Boxing, man. I mean, I think if you're going to be a boxing fan and you want to follow stuff like that, it looks like DAZN. I know that DAZN. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the DAZN thing was a one-off with Canelo. That was a Golden Boy card last night, and Canelo was in the crowd. But if DAZN wants to be your place for boxing, which they're focused on boxing, I think they're dropping MMA, or Bare Knuckles supposed to be there too. Probably we'll see them push that Paige Van Zandt. I think February 5th is when she's making her debut with BKFC, and I believe DAZN is going to be the host for that. I remember that was something that was big time because they have their own app too. So I don't know if that moved forward with DAZN. You never know, because they were supposed to be featuring Bellator cards, and the last one they didn't even do anything with. So, again, that's my opinion. Don't hold MMA News accountable. MMAnews.com accountable or anything. That's just me talking smack because I just think DAZN dropped the ball when it came to mixed martial arts. But I think that's it for me. I hope you had took it easy on New Year's Eve. And I mean, if you follow me on Twitter, you'll know that I didn't. I drank some pretty heavy beers, and I had myself some Howler Head. Shout out to Dana White for putting me up on Howler Head. It's actually pretty good bourbon, and they don't sponsor me or anything. And me and Dana White aren't friends or whatever you want to call it, but it's banana infused bourbon, and I had a safe, lonely New Year's Eve by myself, drinking up my booze, looking at the highlights from Ryzen, and then watching me some Twilight Zone and Cobra Kai, season 3. So that's part of the reason why this came out so late today, is because I'm wearing off that haze of the boozing I did on New Year's Eve. But lots of good stuff coming here at MMAnews.com. So please make sure, if you're not following the website, check it out. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're going to have a lot of interviews coming and stuff like that. And of course, if you want to see everything that I throw out into the internet, you can follow me on Twitter at Carbazel. I do my podcast on Tuesdays. I do this on Sundays, and I throw out multiple articles through a few places on the internet as the week goes by. A little slow with that. I'm working on a list piece. I don't know where it's going to be yet, but it's going to be about the fighters that shined on in 2020 during the pandemic. It's a good list. I think you'll like it. Anybody watches this one wants to pull my coat about it, it's yours if the price is right. If you know what I'm saying. You got to hustle. 2021, you know what I mean? Nothing is promised to you. You got to work for it. So hope you all have a great 2021. Stay positive. We're all in it together. Be friendly, be nice, and I'll catch you next week. I'm tapping out. Sunday submission. Peace.